Good afternoon, everyone. I've got 1 o'clock here as the time. We're kind of have a little bit lighter crowd than I'd anticipated, so we'll just monitor the waiting rooms and let folks join us as they can. Thank you very much for making the time to join us here. My name's John Benner. I'm the Animal Science Extension Agent for Augusta County. We've put together a webinar for you today. I was approached by our Augusta and Highland County Director, Laura Bagoon, of the Farm Service Agency, who approached me about hosting a webinar for the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program 2. So I'll turn the program over to her here momentarily. Couple quick housekeeping things. We are recording the session, and we do hope to have a posting of it at a extension website here in the near future. So if you have a colleague that maybe missed today's presentation, we'll try to have it up here in the coming weeks. Please remain muted while we finish the recording session. We'll monitor the chat box for any questions. So if you do have one, feel free to type it in there. With that, Laura, I'll let you go ahead and take over whenever ready.
All right. Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you guys for having me, John. Thanks for agreeing to do this today. There's been a lot of questions revolving this second round of Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. So I'm thankful for John for teaming up with us and being able to get this information out to you guys. We're going to kind of move forward through here. Like John said, if you have questions, type them in the chat box, and then we'll try to go over all those at the end. I am Laura Bagoon. I'm the County Executive Director in the Augusta Highland office. And my contact information is on the screen. These slides will be available hopefully through extension the same way we talked about with the recording. But there is, we'll look a little bit later, some information you can find on the website for your local county office. You can get to me if you're not in Augusta and Highland counties, and I can direct you to your county office, or we can assist you in our office as best we can. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about what CFAP 2.0 is, who is eligible, how to apply, what commodities are eligible, and all the different payment categories that there are. There's a lot more that was added to CFAP 2 than CFAP 1. So the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program 2, the goal, as you can see here, was to provide relief for producers that continue to be impacted by COVID-19. These are the operations that have been impacted since April, and they are all encouraged to apply. There are many more commodities, like I said, that are eligible for CFAP 2 than were originally eligible with the first CFAP program payments. CFAP 1, the early producers that applied for that program received 80% and then another 20% payment later on. For CFAP 2, we are going to be paying 100% of the payment at sign up as long as the producer is eligible. And payments are not going to be withheld to satisfy our prior USDA debts or offset by Treasury. So you should be getting 100% of your payment. And the deadline is December 11th. So we've got about a month and a half to get everybody signed up yet. Who is eligible? Any person or legal entity that shares in the risk of producing an eligible commodity. So you do have to have ownership shares of the commodity that you want to sign on the application. Average adjusted gross income has to be less than $900,000 average for those 3 years that you see there, 2016, 17, and 18, the average. If it is not less than that, then as long as 75% of the average adjusted gross income comes from farming, ranching, or forestry related activities, that producer is still eligible for the program. They do have to produce commercially, and the producer has to be in business at the time of the application. So even if they went out of business last month and they're just now applying, they would not be eligible because they are not in that business at the time. And a note, contract growers are not eligible for CFAP2. I'll discuss that, how it concerns the poultry industry a little bit later on. Some clarifications on eligibility. Participation in CFAP1 does not make you ineligible for CFAP2. So even though you apply for CFAP1, you are eligible for those CFAP2 funds also. They are separate programs. If you didn't apply for CFAP1, you can still apply for CFAP2. Even though they've got the same name, they're still two separate programs. New producers who may not have historical sale records can still apply. So most, as you'll see later on, most of our payments are based on 2019 sales. But if you are a new producer, we can use 2020 production amounts, sales amounts, if you are a new producer in those areas. And it does not include producers no longer in the business of farming at the time of application. We just discussed that. Some payment limitations. So for a person or legal entity, the limit is $250,000 on a payment. For corporate entities, LLCs, LPs, trusts, and estates, there is some additional money that can be received as long as 2 or 3 members contribute each at least 400 hours of active personal labor or management. You can see those amounts on those screens, and we take care of that. That's automatically completed in our software. We take care of that at time of sign up. CFAP2 payment limitations are separate than CFAP1. So if you maxed out at the 250,000 limit for CFAP1, then you're eligible to receive an additional 250,000 for CFAP2. Anybody that's new to USDA, we've had a lot for both of these programs, and we have gotten very well at getting new producers signed up for this program. There's some basic information that we'll need: name, address, information including your social or tax ID numbers for entities, some farm operating structure if you are an entity, average adjusted gross income compliance that we talked about. We do that on a form. There's a direct deposit form that we'll need completed. All of our payments are made through direct deposit, so it'll automatically be put in your account once the application is approved. And if you're going to be applying for crops, certain types of crops, you will need to file an Acreage report with us if that has not already been completed. These forms are available, you can see on the website, farmers.gov/CFAP. The application this go round does have to be completed within the office because we do, because of the crops, that information is automatically pulled from one of our other systems. So those applications, we cannot accept manual. They do have to be completed within the office this time. Like I talked about earlier, there is a service center locator on the farmers.gov website, and that will help you locate your office and a contact person for that office. That is very helpful when trying to locate where you need to go. Another piece that they came out with for CFAP2, which has helped us as well as you producers tremendously, is the Commodities Finder tool. We relate to this all the time because there's certain commodities we haven't always looked up, and you can go to this website and look at this finder, and you can determine if your commodity that you're raising is eligible, and if it is eligible, the information we're going to need on that commodity to be able to get you signed up. So that is a very helpful tool for both you all and for us in the service center. There's a call center that's also available that you can call from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Those are FSA employees that are doing the work And you get one-on-one time with those people to help get all your paperwork in order and find out what you need, all that different type of information. The phone number is listed there, and that's also on the farmers.gov website. So we're going to get a little bit into now what is eligible for payments. You can see here there's 3 different categories, and we're going to go more into depth into those. The price trigger categories are, as it says, price trigger categories. There's acreage-based crops, including what you can see there: barley, corn, sorghum, soybeans, sunflowers, cotton, wheat. There's also broilers and eggs, dairy, which is cow milk, and then the livestock: beef, cattle, hogs, and pigs, lambs, and sheep. The price trigger for cow milk for the dairy producers is seen here. I'm not going to go a whole lot in depth into this. In Augusta County, we are working with the majority of our dairy producers already to get this taken care of. But you can see here the payment rate for milk. We need their pounds of production from April through August. And then we do a calculation for estimated pounds of milk for September through December. So they're getting payments on April through December milk production. For the eggs and broilers, there's 4 different kinds of eggs that we're paying on. Shell eggs we're paying per dozen. And then dried, liquid, and frozen eggs we're paying on per pound for those. You give us those production amounts for 2019, and we input those into the system. Same thing with the broilers. Now, these cannot be contract growers. They are not eligible unless the producer has both ownership and risk of production loss in the commodity or the livestock. We do have some contracts right now at our national office in review for some broilers in our area. So if you do raise contract broilers, please get in touch with your local office to find out if you are eligible for this. If you're a new producer of any of these, again, your 2019 production you won't have, but we will take your 2020 production at the time of application and use that for your payment amount. Next one is the livestock. This is probably where we have the majority of our applications at. The biggest question here that people are asking is what type of livestock are included. This is for non-breeding stock. So anything that has not had an offspring or has not serviced a female is eligible. So with beef cattle, all of your calves are eligible. All steers you may have on feed, any heifers that you may be keeping as replacement heifers, and they can be bred. The same thing with hogs and sheep, females. If they are bred, they are eligible as long as they have not had an offspring hit the ground. And what you're going to do, you're going to turn in a one-time inventory of the highest day of head you had for each of those commodities. And that time frame, as you can see there, is from April 16th to August 31st. So you look at your inventory and what day did you have the highest inventory per head, and you give us that one number, and you're going to get paid on those payment rates. Beef cattle are $55 a head, hogs and pigs are $23, and sheep and lambs are $27 a head. The next is our per acre price trigger for acre-based commodities. These are going to be like your barley, your sorghum, soybeans, sunflowers, cotton, wheat, and then a fair amount of varieties of corn. And on the next screen, I'll show you the rates, but I wanted to explain a little bit as to how these payments are calculated. This is what I discussed and said when you do an acreage report with us. You look at the maps and you mark on our maps where you have these annual crops planted at. And then we put that in our system and you sign off on an acreage report. Our CFAP program is then going to pull from that acreage reporting software how many acres of the crop that you had. And it's going to multiply that by a nationwide crop marketing percentage, which for corn is 40%. And then it's going to multiply that by a crop specific payment rate, which you can see is 58 cents for corn. That's a nationwide payment rate also. And then it's going to use the producer's weighted 2020 actual production history approved yield. You're only going to have that type of yield if you have crop insurance. And if you have crop insurance, our system is going to pull that information from RMA that they have provided to us and use your yield. If you don't have crop insurance and that APH is not available, then it's going to use 85% of a weighted county average benchmark yield, that comment you see there in the middle of the screen for you, instead of using your crop insurance information. So underneath, you can see there how 170 acres of corn at 40% marketing percentage, 58 cents is the payment rate, and 140.16 bushels is their yield, and that's going to calculate that payment. This payment is the greater of this calculation or the planted acres multiplied by 15. I have not seen any where the straight payment of $15 per acre has been higher. So the majority of the time it is going to be this calculation that's going to be used. So this screen here then shows you the commodities that are eligible for this price trigger for the acreage-based commodities, and shows you what the marketing percentage is used. So, corn, you're mainly going to get paid on 40% of your total acreage, and then your payment rates. This go around wheat, all classes of wheat are eligible. Last CFAP1, there were just certain varieties that were eligible. And the nice thing about this software is it calculates all of this for us. So when it pulls your acreage that you've reported to us and we input into our acreage reporting system, it automatically pulls it over to the CFAP software and pulls all this information for us. Flat rate categories, you'll see here what's listed around here. Alfalfa is a big one. We have some triticale, oats, some rye. We do have some hemp around, millet. So some of those may be eligible under this flat rate category. And as you see, those are the ones that were just listed, the ones that were eligible. The ones that aren't eligible are a lot of the hay. Alfalfa is the only type of hay commodity that is going to be eligible for payment. And these get a flat $15 payment on each eligible acre for each crop. And no yield is considered on this, just the acreage. So that's why they call them flat rate crops. You're going to get $15 an acre on those crops. So depending on the crop, acreage-based crop producers be paid according to the price trigger and flat rate payment categories. You need to ensure that you have an acreage report on file with us, and we do those here at the office. And we do need to help you with that since it is auto-populated from our other system. Some of our sales commodity categories. A lot of these are what are new for CFAP2. These are definitely some different commodities than what were included in CFAP1. Pretty much all fruits and vegetables are included in this. And these sales commodities are based off 2019 sales. So there's quite a bit that's added, quite a bit that's different from the original CFAP1. The specialty livestock I wanted to hit on a little bit just because we do have some of these around here, and these do have to be raised for food, fiber, fur, or feathers. So as long as you are raising and selling these livestock for one of those four purposes, then your 2019 sales of that would be eligible for payment. I know there are, some goat producers in our areas And as long as those goats are being sold for food, for meat purposes, then we can use the sales from 2019 and issue payments on those goats that were sold. Turkeys are another one. We're looking at, we said contract growers are not eligible unless the producer has ownership and risk of production loss in that livestock. Currently, the national office has reviewed the Virginia Poultry Growers Co-op members' contracts, and those are eligible at this time because they do have ownership and a risk of production loss in those turkeys. They are owners of that co-op. So if you have any questions on any of these, make sure you reach out to either myself or your local FSA office. Eligible sales for this category are of the raw commodities. One I don't think was listed on one of those screens that we do have in Highland is maple sap. I've been around with our state office a little bit trying to figure out, is the sap or the syrup eligible? And they tend to be leaning that the sap is how we're going to pay, but if it was sales of the syrup, we have to convert that back to the raw commodity, which would be the sap. So the sap would be eligible. We just have to convert those sales back to the maple sap. So whenever we're looking any of these types of categories, we have to only look at the sales of the raw commodities because adding value like processing and packaging are not included in the amount. Like I said before, producers are going to report their total commodity sales in dollars and cents to us for those sales categories. Payment rates are based on what you see here. It's a tiered structure. So the first $49,999 is going to get 10.6%, 50 to $199,999 is going to get 9.9%, and you can see how it goes all the way up to sales over 1 million. Thankfully, our system also calculates this out for us too. And again, like we talked about with others, producers that do not have 19 sales records will give us 2020 sales records at the time of the application. This is just an example to kind of clarify that if eligible fruits from 2019 totaled $75,000, then the payment would be calculated as follows. The first $49,999 is going to be at 10.6, and the remaining is going to be at the 9.9% for a total of $7,775. Some reminders on documentation. Everybody always asks us, what do we need to bring to provide to you as far as documentation? We cannot ask upfront for any type of documentation. Our county committee, if questions the application, can ask for some type of documentation, but at the time of application, you are not required to provide any type of documentation. By signing the application, the CFAP2 application, you are certifying that that is your production, or that is your whatever number you're turning in, that you are certifying to that number. We do ask that you keep your documentation just in case they do spot check further on. And if you want to provide us with some type of documentation, we can include that within our folders that we keep here on file for you. So if you want to bring that and put it in with your application, then that is definitely welcome to do also. Applying, call your local office. There's language interpretation services. USDA partner organizations also can help us out some, technical assistance to producers. So after you sign an application, you have 60 days to resolve any eligibility issues. This is things like your average adjusted gross income form getting signed, or entity information getting to us, or documentation on your direct deposit, anything like that, you've got 60 days from the time your application was signed to get all your eligibility issues taken care of. We then begin reviewing your application after it's signed, and we'll follow up if we have any questions, or again, if there's any missing information. Applications are approved and processed for payments. And usually once it's approved, it takes a few days for it to be direct deposited into your bank account. And then Kansas City will send you a paper in the mail. It usually takes a week or two to get to you after that amount has been deposited for your records. More information, the farmers.gov/CFAP website is actually very good. We tend to go to it a lot for reference in the office for information, and redirect producers to it all the time. It's got some great information on it, on eligibility, the commodities, the payment limitation information, some of the forms that you need to apply, and of course it's got program information in Spanish listed on there. So some people are saying, how they heard this through, word of mouth from somewhere out in the field. You can subscribe to FSA information. There's a link here, fsa.usda.gov/subscribe. And this will get you news releases and all types of information to you when information like this does come out from FSA. Once you get signed up with your local county office, you can also sign up for a GovDelivery email newsletter that we send out monthly from our local office, as well as our state office sends one out monthly. And every so often we'll send text message updates for pertinent deadlines. So there's always ways to get in touch with us and to be getting our information from us. That is the end of what I had prepared for you all today. It was a quick overrun of what we have available for CFAP2. I hope it clears up some questions on what people had, what is eligible and what isn't. There is a lot, almost everything is eligible under this new CFAP2 program. It's just figuring out where it belongs and in what category it belongs into. So I encourage you, if you're not in Augusta Highland, I encourage you to go to your local office or contact us, and we'll get you to the right place that you need. And I thank you again for letting me present this today and getting this information out to you guys. I'm going to turn this back over to John to see if we have any questions or any comments.
So if you do have a question, feel free to type it in the chat box. Hadn't had any that showed up so far, but certainly if you have any, feel free to do so. Laura, one question or quick question I had was on the flat rate crops. Are they paid out of acreage or yield? Or does
flat
it
rate
depend?
are paid on acreage.
Acreage.
Yep. So like alfalfa is going to be $15 an acre for any alfalfa that is reported to us. The same thing with all those commodities listed there on that screen. So those are a flat rate, $15 an acre payment.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions? And we have a comment from Berkeley Clark. Thank you, good explanations. No questions so far. I think you did an excellent job going over everything, Laura, so maybe everyone's questions have been answered.
Thank you. And I mean, don't be afraid to reach out to the call center, to the website, to a local office, to myself. I think Extension, I know both in Augusta and Berkeley back in Highland have been helping us out tremendously, getting the word out and getting people signed up. So don't be afraid to contact somebody with any questions that you might have. We're all here to help and support and to get these payments issued.
Okay. All righty. Well, I still don't have any direct questions, so at this time, we'll go ahead and conclude the webinar. If you do have questions, feel free to just look for the slides and the recording to be up sometime soon. We'll try to get that to you as soon as we can, as well as going and reaching those resources Laura mentioned. So with that, appreciate everyone joining us, and we'll look forward to hearing from everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.